For those of you who know me and my story, you know that I adopted Miguel. You know that he came to me as a 4-year-old and the challenges that I had with him. And one reason that I got into this work with trauma that I have not shared with many people yet is actually my father. I'm Dr. Aimie, your guide for transforming your trauma into your gift. You adapted to life experiences to survive, but you are not your trauma. Join me as I teach the science and biology of trauma that allows us to be strategic, intentional, and organized in your approach to address difficult and painful life experiences that has become your biology. Trauma Healing Accelerated is where you get a roadmap for the right tools in the right order for your healing journey. My father was adopted. My grandparents who adopted him were immigrants from Armenia, and they had survived the genocide and a death march. My grandfather, when he was a teenager, went through this death march, having had to leave all of their family possessions, their house having been burned down, their business having been burned down, and they're being marched through the desert. And along the way, family members are killed. My grandfather's grandparents were killed in front of him. And this story has really shaped who I am and what I want to bring to the world. Because at the end of that death march, they are at this area where they are surrounded by mountains behind them. And the cavalry is starting to get ready for their morning massacre where they're going to kill all of these people. And realizing this, my grandfather's father says, there's only one way out. Like, we're not going to survive if we stay here. We have to try to get out. And so in the night, once the sun set and all of the Turks were starting their parting for what they knew would be the morning massacre, they started crawling out on the sand on their bellies. They couldn't lift their heads up high. They would be seen just by the lights from the torches and the fires that were going on. And so literally they had to stay down on the ground. And this was my grandfather, his sister, his mother, and his father. And they crawled out onto the sand for hours until they were just past the guards who were in that area. And then they knew that they still had one more layer to go, but it was near dawn. And so what they did was that my grandfather's father started building kind of like a cave into the sand. And he tucked in the sister first, the youngest girl in the family, and then my grandfather. And as he was tucking in my grandfather, I imagine being there, and I imagine being that one that's having my father tuck me into the sand and cover my head over so that I wouldn't be seen, and not knowing if I'm ever going to see my father again, not knowing if I'm going to live through the experience. And he said to his father, please take care of yourself. He knew that as a child, like, he wouldn't be able to make it if his father didn't make it. So it was that one last plea of, please dig yourself a hole too. Don't neglect yourself, take care of yourself. And they all survived that night. The cavalry did pass over them, and one of the horse's hooves hit my grandmother in the neck, and they did not notice them. They did not see them though, but she always had migraines and headaches after that, chronic neck pain. But they survived. And as I look at what I want to bring to the world, that is so much of what I want to bring, like that spirit of resourcing ourselves, of surviving the challenges that each one of us faces in our life, because life is going to bring us challenges, like that's a guarantee. And how are we going to face them? Are we, like many people, going to be the ones who are overpowered by the fear in their life and they stay in that spot that they've been told to stay, surrounded by mountains behind them? They can't leave that way. They've got guards in front of them. They can't leave that way. And so they just stay. And they die. And there's many of us who have let a part of us die, and yet we go through our daily life. We go through our daily life settling for having that place in ourselves feel a little numb, feel dead. And we think that this is what life is. And yet what I want to bring is that fight and that spirit back to trauma, where I'm not going to just wait here. I'm not going to let a part of me die. I'm going to fight to be fully alive. I'm going to fight to thrive. I'm going to fight for life. And when I see all of the people walking around right now, and they're living in so much fear, they have let a part of themselves die. They are not fully alive. They're not fully alive to the possibilities of life. They're letting their fear keep them small. They're letting their fear keep them paralyzed and not actually reaching out and fighting for their own life. It was after that my grandfather went to the main city and found a boat. And there were 3 boats that were taking people away from Armenia at that time. One was headed towards South America. I forget where another boat was headed. And one was headed towards San Francisco, America. And he happened to get on that boat. And so he comes over and he marries a fellow Armenian who also survived that time period. And they find out that they're not able to have children. And this was such a heartache for them because family was so important to them, and being able to pass on that family spirit of survival that they had just experienced. And so they decided to adopt, and they adopted my father. And so growing up with a father who was adopted and who struggled with a lot of the insecurities that can come with being adopted, I got to witness firsthand. And it almost is like I got to experience a lot of his insecurities, because since he was never happy and able to accept himself, he was not able to be happy and accept anybody else. And so as a young child, I could see the pain in my father's eyes. And as a young child, I tried to be the one to fix that pain, of course. That's what we do when we're children. And being able to see how much that he was hurting inside. And it really moved me to want to help people. It was one of the reasons why ultimately I decided to become a physician, was to be able to really help touch that hurt and that pain inside of people and be able to fix it, be able to make them feel better, be able to take it away and have them just be lifted of that burden and feel that joy, that happiness that is available to us in life. And as I've gone along my journey, and I've met many, many patients now, thousands of patients that I have taken care of, both in general surgery residency, and then in addiction medicine residency, and then running the addiction medical detox units, and now working with people around the world who are working on their life, working on becoming their best selves with their best health, knowing that they've experienced hardships in life.